Swamiji.
Hari Om. Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyan Nigantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivodbhutan Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Svatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivangkuro Jagadidam Prangnirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Deshakala Kalana Vaichitra Chitri Kritam Maya Viva Vijrumbhayatya Bimaha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om. So we were discussing the pramanas, the means of knowledge. I mean the Vedantins who accepts the 6 means of knowledge, we were discussing that one by one, and lastly we have reached to the Vedas. And there also Veda also, a complete Veda of course is a means of knowledge, but then the subject matter of the earlier portion of the Veda and the later portion of the Veda is different. And the later portion of the Veda, what it describes as a subject matter, is not available for other means of knowledge. What is described in the earlier portion of the Veda also, that subject matter also is not available for other means of knowledge. And that's how the status of a pramana, the status of a means of knowledge, that status, Veda gains that status, being the subject matter which is not revealed by other means of knowledge, and that is called a anadhigatatvam. Adhigata I have told you. Adhigata means known. Jnatam is equal to adhigatam. It's adhi plus gam dhatu. So from there, gam dhatu has a meaning gam gacchati, to go as such. If you add a adhi prefix, adhi gacchati, etc., then it becomes to know. So that depending upon the prefix, definitely you gain different types of meanings. If you put, prefix a, then you agacchati, means to arrive. Gacchati means to go. Agacchati means to arrive. That's how we use the word gamanam, going. Agamanam, coming, arriving. So this is how, depending upon the prefix. And so anadhigatatvam, adhigamaha means knowledge. Adhigatam, which known. Anadhigatam, not known. What is not known? Subject matter is not known. Through what? Through other means of knowledge. And therefore, pramana should have a very basic thing. Is the subject matter which is revealed by that particular means of knowledge should not be available to other means of knowledge. If it is available, but Swamiji, suppose if it is available to other means of knowledge, then what we will call? We will call anuvada. I am going to come, today we are going to discuss that. So it is called anuvada, reiteration. And Veda of course has so many things as, reiteration, which you generally know through other means of knowledge available to the human being. But that is, we generally don't say that is the revelation of the Veda. That is just discussed there because of some purpose. I will discuss that. Anyway, also all the pramanas, including the Veda, definitely, of course, but imply the presence of a pramata, the knower. So knower only operates all these various means of knowledge and gain the knowledge. And so Veda also as an independent means of knowledge also presents even Brahman as a cause of the world, and later it equates with the pramata itself. the knower. And we have seen that. So when it says you are Brahman, means you, the one who has come to this means of knowledge called Vedanta, well, you, the knower, is Brahman. So there is oneness between the Pramata, the knower, and Brahman. This revelation of this oneness by the Shastra, of course, implies then disappearance of Pramata basically. Pramata should disappear, because when says you are Brahman, and then definitely the Pramata, he knows himself that I am Pramata, etc. The Veda does not say that you are Pramata. Veda says the one who you, the Pramata, the knower, is Brahman. That's a revelation. That is a thing which he doesn't know. And that is what the means of knowledge is doing. And therefore he has to drop. What? Pramatrutvam he has to drop. And definitely, so this is a last means of knowledge where even in the Veda itself, the earlier portion of the Veda definitely requires a Pramata in order to know heaven, in order to know Punya Papa, in order to know Devatas, in order to know various rituals, in order to know the results of the rituals. The Pramata has to be retained. But in the later portion of the Veda, well, in the Vedanta, this the status of Pramatrutvam is in question now. Anyway, so the negation has no meaning if it is not negatable. So it is negated, Pramatrutvam is negated, means it is negatable. And when we have discussed this, since it can be negated, well, Pramatrutvam is not an intrinsic property of the Atma. If it is not an intrinsic property, then from the essential nature of the Atma, that is Brahman, well, definitely there is no Pramatrutva. So from the standpoint of essential nature of Atma, that is Brahman, and Pramatrutvam has to be negated. So it is negatable, it is mithya, etc. And then the negation itself reveals that what is negated is only an incidental property. An incidental property is assumed to be the intrinsic property. That's how there is a question of negation. Otherwise, why should it negate it? If you know it's an incidental property, suppose if you know a partners is an incidental property of a clay, then definitely I need not tell that a pot is mithya, etc. Or there is no partners in clay. I need not tell that. But if you think that the pot is real, the partners belongs to pot, let's say that. Partners belongs to pot. Then definitely I have to tell, well, partners is an incidental attribute to the clay. Clay has a clayness. Pot has partners, don't say that, because that doesn't survive if the scrutiny. So basically, partners, this is a wise step to talk like this. Partners is an incidental attribute of clay. Clayness is an intrinsic property of a clay. Well, potness is not an intrinsic property of the pot. Understand that. So potness, because the pot itself is not there. Where is a question of intrinsic property of a pot? Anyway, so potness is an incident that Pujya Swamiji arrives at this, to discuss these 3-4 lines. He takes half an hour. He takes half an hour in order to arrive at this. Definitely. Because this thing, our mind is all the time oriented and through the reality of the pot. So base thing is, potness is an incidental attribute of the clay. That's the way we have to say. And well, if you know it as incidental, I need not have to tell. I need not have to tell that it is incidental. But if you say that potness is an intrinsic attribute of the clay, I have to tell potness is incidental. It has come and it will go. And the great pot maker, he has given that incidental attribute to the clay. What? Potness is given by pot maker. Yeah, it will go. Once the pot breaks, it will go. So potness is incidental attribute. Anyway. So basically, here also we require a negation, because we take Pramata as a intrinsic attribute of I, the Atma. If you ask to anybody, what is his final answer is this: well, I am knower. Further, no, there is no further, he says. There is nothing further. I am Pramata. That's a reality. So I, the Atma, and the Pramata, that's equated. So oneness between the Atma and Pramata. And that means this is the final reality. Well, then Vedanta comes as a means of knowledge, tells you, well, you are not a Pramata, you are Brahman. So that's an equation. That's a Mahavakya. And therefore, that shows Pramatruttam is negated automatically. And therefore, Pramatruttam is not an intrinsic attribute of the Atma. So, better you know it as a incidental attribute, not intrinsic. So, it is assumption, what we assume is negated. Whole life is assumption, by the way. Whole life is assumption. In a life, whatever person does with assumption. And because in his all his activities, he has a perception about himself, which that perception is not a reality. That perception is an assumption. As I told you, if you remember 2-3 days ago, that I will be happy when I get an education. Once the education is over, I will be free, because there is a lot of tension of the exams and this and that, and then this will be over, I will be free bird. And then he says, no, once I will get a job, I will be happy. Then gets married, I will be happy. Then have a children, then I will be happy. Then this, I will have my own house and this and that, and I will have one car. I will have this salary, this much promotion, that status, I will be happy. I will be happy. I will be happy. I will be happy. That life of becoming, this is assumption. I will be happy is an assumption. And that because no one, how can you say it's an assumption? Because no one has become happy. So this is how we never come near to these Swamis. They are all pessimistic people. They are basically useless. Even whatever a little bit interest we have in our life, through our, eating samosas, etc., that also will go away if we meet people like you. It's not. We are trying to show that you don't require. For happiness, don't postpone. Puja Swamiji said, don't postpone happiness. Because the very source is you. Very source is you. A conscious being can be happy. A inert thing can never be happy. That much common sense we should have. And therefore, so still a conscious being can be happy person. And so, ultimately the source should be the conscious being. Inert thing cannot give you happiness. And therefore, it's an assumption that this gives me happiness. It's an assumption. And we are pessimistic. By your assumption, you have a disappointment in your life. When you assume something and it doesn't turn out to be that way, you yourself becomes the source of disappointment. We want to save you from the disappointment. Yeah, that's called shoka, sorrow. Anyway, so that is how the whole message of Bhagavad Gita is to make a person relieve to relieve the person from sorrow. Ashochananda Shuchastvam, and ultimately also Ma Shuchaha. Don't grieve. But Bhagavan's single message is don't grieve. Don't assume, don't grieve. This is today's answer. Don't assume, don't grieve. Have an interest in a life of being rather than life of becoming. Any becoming will be limited, because it will be becoming. Means you are not, and you will be in the future. Anything which comes in future, well, it is time bound, definitely. It is it's place bound, and it is object bound also, all the way. And you will not be interested. Your heart will not be satisfied. How can you say that my heart will not be satisfied? You take your own experience into account. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmano nirveda mayat. You examine what you have got in your life. You were having that kind of assumption in past that these things I will gain, or I will become this and I will be happy. What has happened? Heart is still empty, in fact more empty now. Getting half filled, no half filling. More you gain, more you dissatisfied. This is a rule. More you gain, more you will be dissatisfied. So this is how it is. So better learn. That's a wisdom. That's a living intelligently. Our acharyas always talk about this, living intelligent. This is an intelligent way of living, in which we definitely, we utilize our precious time. Human life has, it is beyond the cost. Beyond the cost. Every moment is so precious. Anyway, so this is, assumption. This is also assumption. What? I am a pramata. That's an assumption. And therefore, when say you are Brahman, means you, the knower, the pramata is Brahman, means pramatrutvam is knocked off. We have to understand that. Means pramatrutvam, but I am pramata. How can you knock off? Well, it is incidental property. We don't say it is not, but it is incidental. We don't say there is no partners in the clay. It is there, yes, but incidental. In future it will not be there. Only clay will be there. There will not be a part at all. It will break and the partners will go. So if the incidental property is taken to be intrinsic, well, in the case of Atma, then we have to negate that incidental property. And this assumption is we call generally as a superimposition. It's a pure superimposition that pramatrutvam is superimposed upon Atma, and so negatable. Any superimposition is born of ignorance, and therefore it should be negated, because it is assumption, it is superimposition, it is error. Error has to be negated. So being negatable, it is negated. Okay. Now the Shastra presents, the Brahman as a Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So that existence, knowledge and limitlessness, etc. And therefore, well, then nothing is separate. Being limitless, nothing is separate from the Brahman, and very nature is existence, and thereby also there is nothing is separate from the Brahman, because anything is, you say, the very existence of that thing is dependent upon Brahman, and therefore nothing is separate from Brahman, and Brahman is non-dual. And being existence and limitlessness, definitely it is non-dual. There is nothing other than that. If there is anything other than that, means that there is a duality. Then Brahman is not non-dual. And therefore, being limitless, it is non-dual. That's all. Being limitless, these are certain simple sutras. Anything which is limit. But Swamiji, then space also is limitless. But who says space is limitless? You are saying. I am not saying space is limitless. Yeah, space is one of the element of 5 elements. Well, automatically space is not limitless. If space is limitless, why should we talk about other 4 elements? We should tell only one element. And therefore, if we count 5, then definitely they are different. Any counting is based on the difference, duality. Otherwise, how will you count? You say 10 apples are there. How you have counted 10? Oh, I am seeing this is 1. Boundary of 1 is over, then the boundary of second, then the third. Well, okay. So that way, even space is not limited. But Swamiji, space, I am not able to see that it is not limitless. And therefore, space is limitless. No, sir. This has been discussed in Taittiriya Bhashyam, in the Brahmanand Valli. I think, anyway, no, not, we will not come across anyway. But what I am saying is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. There Bhashyakara has discussed this. While discussing Anantam, he said even the space is not Anantam, because space has a Vastu Paricheda. It is limitation in terms of, limitation, object-wise limitation is there. What is space is not air. What is fire is not space. Space is distinct from, in terms of an object, it is distinct from other 4 elements. And therefore, definitely, space is not limitless. So, if we cannot perceive that way that it is limited, etc., but it doesn't mean that it is limitless. And of course, space is existence of the space dependent upon Brahman, and therefore Brahman is limitless. By the way, space is non-separate from Brahman, and Brahman is limitless. So basically the non-duality necessary definitely implies oneness. So there will not be 2 entities, Pramata and Brahman. And therefore one of them should be knocked out. And then Brahman being limitless, definitely it cannot be knocked out. The way Pramata is knocked out. Pramata must be the incidental property. And therefore, Jiva plus Brahman, Jiva plus Ishvara is not possible. Jiva is Brahman. And therefore, Jivatvam is Mithya. Jivatvam is incidental property. Could you follow? Jiva is Brahman. Their oneness through Mahavakya, etc. There, Jiva plus Brahman we can never say. Pramata plus Brahman we can never say. One of them is Mithya. So the truth of Jiva is bound to be what? Being non-separate, the truth of the Jiva is definitely Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. And so Jiva and Ishvara or Jiva and Brahman are essentially one truth. Or if you want to say the Ishvaratvam and Jivatvam, if you want to see the difference, well, that difference is Mithya. In essence, there is no difference. And so this is this kind of the truth about myself. Well, definitely you can never know. If to know any other thing, the pramata has to be retained. To know anything, pramata has to be retained. Pratyaksha, you require a pramata. Behind the senses, the pramata knower should be there. Behind anumanam, knower should be there. Behind presumption, knower should be there. Behind behind upamanam also, knower should be there. Behind anupalabdhi, knower should be there. Behind earlier section of the Veda also, well, to know heaven and to know punya papa, to know devatas, etc., etc., the knower should be there. But the later portion of the Veda, well, when you approach Vedanta as a knower, definitely, but then the knower himself is negated. So Swamiji, then who will know? I will come to that. If knower is negated, who will know I am Brahman, etc.? Anyway, so that kind of a question will arise in your mind. Anyway, so with reference to heaven, one has no means of knowing. And therefore it becomes the subject matter of the Veda. And well, and there the pramata is necessary. Pramata has to exist in order to know that there is heaven, etc. And there is rebirth, there is punya papa, etc. Now in the last portion, known as Vedanta, well, the Veda talks about the Atma, the I. Now I is someone who is already existent even before he approaches Upanishad or Vedanta. So I do not require basically any means of knowledge to know that I am. And neither I have to employ any means of knowledge available to me called pratyaksha, etc. To know my existence. And therefore I am existence, I am there, and therefore all these means of knowledge definitely I operate. So before I operate all the means of knowledge, definitely the I should be there, and therefore no means of knowledge can prove my existence. Generally any means of knowledge prove the existence of that particular object. Like pratyaksha, if I want to know how are you looking, then I should have eyes. So eyes give me the knowledge of your form, etc. And thereby I can say, well, your existence. Otherwise, how will I know? Well, but Swamiji, my voice is there. In case even if you don't see, you are able to hear. But then basically you require means of knowledge to prove the existence. Through your voice, well, if I hear your voice and then I can say you are. So how will you know otherwise a thing exists? That's how we say the person who is blind, for him the 1/5 of the world is not there. For him, 1/5. You can understand that the world has 5 types of objects. Out of that, well, the person, suppose he is born blind, suppose, then definitely he doesn't have, he only hears, he only touches, etc. So for him that is the world. He doesn't know what is color. He doesn't know what is form, really. But Swamiji, through the touch, etc. That's correct. But then again, you have to employ a certain means of knowledge, and that he gets a indirect knowledge of a form. And basically, eyes reveal color, and therefore you can assume with certain touch, etc. They say their sense of touch is very, very powerful. The people who are blind, their other sense organs are very powerful, and could be. It could be. We see that also. Anyway, but my point is ultimately a particular organ, sense organ, or that is a means of knowledge, pramanam, only proves the existence of a related object. And therefore, but I am means I exist. Which means of knowledge is required? No means of knowledge. Senses cannot prove. Indriya cannot prove. Indriya proves the existence of other than I, non-I. All the objects which are non-I, you can prove the existence of them through the senses. And the inference based on that perception. Or the presumption based on that assumption. Based on that perception. Or, upamanam, through similarity. There also you require perception ultimately. Or even anupalabdhi, non-existence, etc. Here, of course, we want to prove existence, so anupalabdhi will not talk. I mean, any means of knowledge, even the Veda cannot prove that you are existence. In fact, you are the one who proves the pramana, the validity of the means of knowledge called a Veda. You are very much there even before that. If suppose a person is not there, a knower is not there, where is the pramanam of, where is the validity of the means of knowledge? Where is the Veda's pramanam? Veda will not have any validity as a means of knowledge if you are not there, a conscious being is not there. So Veda does not prove your existence. We should understand what is the subject matter actually of with reference to the self. So all this means I am there, therefore the Veda also operates, right? Otherwise, I am there, therefore the senses operate. I am there, therefore inference it operates. I am there, therefore Veda operates. Veda is a means of knowledge for whom? For the person, but who is already existent. Veda does not prove the existence of a person. So how then the Atma becomes a subject matter of the Vedanta? Because already I know that I exist. I don't require Vedanta for that matter. So, what Vedanta has to tell about me is to be known by me without retaining pramatritva. Now this is we have to discuss. Well, Vedanta has to tell me that you should not retain your pramatritva. In all other means of knowledge other than Vedanta, right? All six. But I am making a part in the Veda. Veda is the sixth pramanam, Shabda pramanam, but I am making a part of it. Vedanta tells please don't retain your pramatritva. In other than that, all other means of knowledge, of course, are possible when I remain as a pramata. I have to retain pramatritva. And here, suppose the same logic you apply here. That if you don't retain a pramatritvam, knowerhood, then how will you know that I am Brahman? We are saying the very notion that I am pramata, has to be negated. That's all. I am pramata. That notion has to be negated. And therefore, because the pramata has to know the truth of itself. And so this is, and therefore, the truth of pramata becomes the subject matter of the Vedanta. And so in the process of the knowing, initially he is a pramata. But then ultimately when he listens to Upanishads and everything, he has to drop that I am a pramata and that I has to be connected to Brahman. Because the oneness between them, pramata and the Brahman, has been revealed through Mahavakya. So ultimate understanding of Mahavakya will be this that you get a doubt-free knowledge or error-free knowledge, doubt and error-free knowledge. That is that I am a pramata. You drop that notion and you say I am Brahman. So the pramata does not continue to exist to know. So this is Brahman. Pramata does not exist because, like you see, in any other piece of knowledge, pramata has to be retained, right? Pramata has to be retained and pramata will tell, this is pen. Like that, pramata is retained here also and says, this is Brahman. That is not the thing. Brahman is not an object. Brahman is the very nature of a pramata, very truth of a pramata, and therefore pramatritvam has to be dropped. So Brahman is not going to be objectified either directly, indirectly, etc. by the pramata. Everything else is directly, indirectly objectified, but there is no way that the pramata stumbles upon Brahman one day and say, oh, this is Brahman. No, because the pramata himself is Brahman, because that's the nature of the subject, not the nature of an object. And so one requires, say, definitely, so one's own means of knowledge will not work. If my means of knowledge work to know Brahman, I have to retain it as a pramata, and all my means of knowledge also I have to operate in order to know Brahman. But Brahman being the nature of a pramata, all my means of knowledge will not work. Because the pramata is one who operates the means of knowledge. That pramata itself is a questionable. That's a notion that I am a pramata. I am the truth of the pramata, that is Brahman, and therefore the means of knowledge are not necessary. The available to the human being is not necessary, and the very knower also is not necessary. And then who will tell? Who will tell that you are Brahman? That's what we are saying. That is where the Upanishad walks in as a means of knowledge. Other than a means of knowledge which is available to the human being, you should have an external means of knowledge which is not available to the human being, and that is Shabda, the words of Vedanta called Mahavakya, etc. Well, that gives you the knowledge, and therefore Vedanta also reveals a subject matter which is not available to the means of knowledge to the human being, and therefore Vedanta is a valid source of knowledge and gives you the self-knowledge. It's also included in the Veda. As the Purva Vibhaga also. We have seen that Swarga, etc., to know Swarga, to know Punyapapam, to know Devata, no other means of knowledge available to the human being. Same way Veda Anta Vibhaga also, the end portion of the Veda definitely talks about the self as a Brahman, Pramata as a Brahman, and well, you can say I am knower without going to Vedanta or any other. You can tell that, no problem. But basically you are not Pramata. Pramata is a notion. You are the truth of Pramata, that is Brahman. And therefore now the so-called I is not connected to Pramata, I is connected to Brahman. So the very I which is there, but it knows the truth. So Pramata's truth is like the potness is dropped, and now you know it is clay. That's how it is. This is how it is. We have to understand. So self-knowledge is included in the Veda and at the end portion, and that also is an independent means of knowledge. Compared to that subject matter is not covered even in the earlier portion of the Veda. And therefore, if we analyze our scriptures and of the various, various other religions in the world, scriptures of various religions, you find that the subject matter, of course, is entirely different. The Pramata has to know that there is a heaven, and one should look upon oneself as one to be saved, etc., etc. And somebody is a savior. All this you can know through their scriptures, religious scriptures. But everywhere that Pramata has to be retained. And with the hope, that also you will come to know that that hope given by them, that if you have a faith in their religion, etc., you can go to heaven, etc. Well, all this thing, whatever they say, that's a different matter. But the Pramata is retained in everything. Then the Veda also in the first portion definitely talks about heaven and its means, but as a time-bound field of experience. And there also Pramata is definitely retained. But when Vedanta begins, Pramatrutvam, gets shaken up, and ultimately, in your clear understanding, now you say, I am Brahman, I am Pramata. That was proved as a notion, error. That's called self-confusion. And this is regarding. And Swamiji, is it fruitful? Everything is useful. We need not talk about whether self-knowledge is useful or not. Phalavat. Because the definition of pramana, includes that phalavat arthabodhakam pramana. Phalavat means it is fruitful. Yeah, the subject matter which is revealed by the Vedanta is fruitful. and it gives you freedom. It makes you free. It makes you free from the sorrow, makes you free from what you don't want. What is unwanted, undesirable, you will be get rid of. And earlier portion of the Veda also is a fruitful, where they talk about Punya Papa, well, very useful. And they say that if you do this, it will generate Punya. Vidhi and Nisheda is meant for this. What they have told as a Vidhanam, as a Vidhi, well, if you follow that, you get Punya. And Nisheda means you don't do that. And still you do that, you will incur Papa. That's how it is. And so, Vidhi Nisheda, the knowledge of Vidhi Nisheda, etc., will be very helpful. And then knowledge of Punya Papa will be very helpful. So, and Punyam will be definitely converted into comfortable situations in the future. Sukham, pleasure, etc. And so, both are fruitful, and which we can never know through any other means of knowledge. So, Veda Purva also is a Phalavat, fruitful. Veda Anta also, which gives a knowledge of self, as a Brahman, etc., that also is fruitful. And therefore, entire Veda has a subject matter which is not available for any other means of knowledge. Anadhigatattvam also is there. And also Phalavat Arthabodhakam. I mean, the subject matter which is revealed by both the sections of the Veda will be fruitful also. And so, now we'll discuss something in the Veda which is not really the subject matter of the Veda as such. And you will find there are so many things like that in the Veda itself. So Veda says something which is already known to you through other means of knowledge. Then definitely Veda will not be called as a pramanam related to that matter. And we call it as a anuvada. We call this kind of a thing as a restatement, reiteration. Like, they say, Ghrutena juhuyat. May one perform this ritual by an oblation of clarified butter. Ghrutam means our ghee, means a clarified butter, and offered unto the fire for a given devata, etc. Now, Ghrutena juhuyat means this whole thing. May one perform this particular ritual by an oblation of a clarified butter, offered unto the fire, of course, and uttering the name of calling a particular devata. For a given devata, you offer this. Now, in that, one thing is known to you. What? Ghrutam. You know clarified butter. So you say, I know clarified butter. And then Veda also says, Ghrutena juhuyat. And therefore, Veda, subject matter of the Veda is not independent. I know through my means of knowledge that this is Ghrutam. I do not have to consult Veda. That's correct. That's very much correct. So, but Veda does not reveal clarified butter. Veda does not reveal clarified butter. Otherwise, Veda will not have a anadhigatattvam. Veda will not have a pramanam. But you can say with reference to Ghrutam, with reference to that clarified butter, you can definitely say Veda has done anuvada. It's a restatement which you already know through other means of knowledge, and Veda also says that. So that is anuvada. It does the anuvada of a clarified butter, we can definitely say. But what is revealed is something else. What it reveals is that clarified butter is a oblation which you never know otherwise. Clarified butter is a oblation in a particular ritual and for a particular devata, uttering that particular mantra, and by that offering you will gain that result. All this thing you will never know unless you consult Veda. Unless you consult Veda, you can never know. So please understand this. Veda talks about bricks. You say, Swamiji, Veda reveals bricks. No, Veda does not reveal bricks. You know bricks as such without even consulting Veda. Anyway, so for bricks, Veda is not a pramanam. But it is pramanam for a number of bricks necessary for a given ritual, for a specific ritual. Now, if you remember in Kenopanisad, they talk about that Nachiketa, Yaga, etc. And their number of bricks, etc. is very certain, 32 or something. I don't remember now that number. But so the number, specific number is required. And definitely So, and to be arranged in a particular way, etc. All that also is there. That Vedi, etc. Well, definitely to create an altar for the ritual, and you need bricks, that's one thing, but you have to arrange in a particular fashion. So you will find a certain altar for a ritual will be a square and or a rectangle or a round, etc. Don't think that it is just a fancy of the person who is going to perform the yaga. It's not that. You have to do in that way. So all this thing is not known to with your means of knowledge. Through Veda only you will come to know. So for bricks it is not a pramanam, definitely not. But then bricks has to be utilized in a given fashion with a specific number, etc. for a given ritual, which is going to give you that particular or so and so result, etc. All this thing is known through Veda. But I may not use. Some people do that. Some people take the liberty. They go by their fancy. What Veda has to talk, let them talk. We will perform ritual, but the way they say will not. They say like that. We will not. So they always bring that the iron altar like they bring along with other materials. They come with that altar and they put it there, and then they put everything. The oblations, etc. is over. Then they clean it little and take it. And no, this is not the way. I mean, that's a modern version of this altar, which generally I have not seen any this kind of a thing. But you don't want to spoil your floor, etc. or in a given place. So this is purely, and then people expect a particular result. And if it doesn't come, they say Veda is an obsolete thing. It doesn't give what you do actually, and they say they promise you, they don't give that result. But have you followed the stipulated have you done that in a stipulated manner? No. So Puja Swami used to tell you want a particular result which is promised by the Veda. But then same Veda which says that for that matter you have to go in a stipulated manner, that you don't want to do. That you will go by your fancy, your Ragadvesha. So Ragadvesha goes even to the ritual. This Ripus, these two our, the enemies, they play a role at every point. They just cannot remain quiet. And therefore people go by the fancy. Even oblation, they have told a particular thing. And a particular kind of a material to be used. If that is not there, they themselves decide. Oh, that is not there, no problem. We can offer with that. That kind of a thing. So far as I would like to tell at this point, so far as anything related to Veda is there, don't take liberty. Don't take liberty. Better not to perform. Honestly, I am telling you. Better not to perform. And if you have Shraddha and you want to perform, and you have a specific desire for a given result, etc. For a specific, you have a desirable result through that yaga and you want it, well, good. But then go by what has been told there. Don't take liberty. That's not advisable. Other way also. So, so the bricks, etc. we were talking. That is why even if there is a statement in the Veda that seems to contradict, suppose, what we can figure out with our means of knowledge, Veda is not contradicted because the Veda is not a pramanam for that. So, no, see, actually through our means of knowledge we came to know that this is thing, and your Veda is talking this, which is just reverse. But Veda is not pramanam for that. Veda is pramanam for not bricks. Veda is not pramanam for the clarified butter, or Veda is not pramanam for the yogurt. Veda is not pramanam for payasam. Payasam to be offered in a Devi Yajna, etc. especially, well, Durga home, etc. So you have to do with that payasam, etc. because Devi likes payasam. Anyway, so but so for payasam it is not a praman. With the payasam, so and so yaga should be done with so and so mantra. It is going to give you so and so result. That is for that subject matter. Veda is a praman. So even if this is what I am saying, even if you find some contradictory thing in the Veda, which you have found a contradiction because through your means of knowledge you get a knowledge in one way, and there you find something else. Then you say Veda is contradictory. No, Veda is not contradictory, because Veda is not a basically means for those kind of things. Definitely. Veda is a means for knowledge, basically to give you the knowledge of different means and ends. And of course, giving you a know-how, etc., total know-how, which we call kalpa. So, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaranam, Jyotisham, Chandas, etc., these are all Vedangas. And so, Kalpa is basically, our Acharyas, the Mimamsakas have analyzed the entire Purva Bhaga of the Veda. And because there is no know-how like that, like Sandhya Vandanam, Nitya Karma, which is a Vedic Karma basically. And don't think that in Rigveda, etc., in the page number 27, the procedure of Sandhya Vandanam is given. It is not that. It is not there in Veda like that. Veda has all these things in a various places. So then somebody has to analyze the entire section and give you know-how. And that all our acharyas have done. Then what kind of a tools they have employed? That's called Mimamsa. That's called Mimamsa. And in Mimamsa there are tools by which you analyze a mantra, etc., and then connect to a particular ritual, etc. And you can, through the analysis of mantra, you come to know what is the devata involved and how it is to be performed, etc. And then they collect everything, which we call a know-how. That's called, they are all kalpa granthas, and they provide that. And therefore, that kalpa granthas are one of the limbs in order to understand Veda. I mean, through that only we understand. Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaranam, Jyotisham, Chandas, Niruktam, etc. So no other means of knowledge can contradict Veda. That's for sure. If you find a contradiction, you should understand that that is not the subject matter. Like suppose they say that, this example they always give, that fire is cold. Fire is cold. Suppose Veda says, Swamiji, look at your Veda. You are all the time talking about Veda, Veda, Veda. See what it is talking. It says fire is cold. Who is going to believe that? But I am telling you, but Veda is not a pramanam for fire. Because fire as such, your senses are enough for that. But then they talk about fire. But then you see something else is there, connected to the fire. You have to do a avahanam of a devata in the fire in a particular way, etc. And then oblation to be given, so-and-so oblation has to be given with the chanting of so-and-so mantra, etc. in the fire. All that is, for that Veda is a pramana. Not for fire Veda is a pramana. And so even if say Veda, fire is cold, etc., that there is a meaning there. We call it Arthavada. We call even the Anuvada, but ultimately we generally divide into Arthavada. So there is Arthavada, etc. Anyway, so this is how, and we have to understand. Now, one who gives the silver in the, what is that? One who gives the silver in the dakshina after yaga, definitely he will have to cry within 1 year. There will be something happening in the home by which he has to cry. So this is a statement there. Now, so we have to interpret properly. Swamiji, what is this? I am giving in a dakshina, and that to silver, not something ordinary thing. And they say if you give silver to that Brahmins or to other people, we have that kind of a tendency. After a particular occasion is over in our home, very auspicious occasion, people buy, the Yajamana buys a silver, lamp, or silver something else, silver bilva patra and all that, and they give it to all the relatives and all that. Now Veda talks like this, that one who gives silver in the dakshina, etc., to the Brahmins, and as a charity to others, after a particular yaga, etc., then definitely there is going to be a loss of somebody in his life within 1 year, and he has to cry. Something like that. Because basically silver is the drops of a Rudra. When Rudra cried and his drops fell, and therefore it turned out to be silver. And therefore one who gives silver, he will also have to cry. He will have to, from his eyes also, all the drops will come out. So these are the statements. Now, don't say this is just as a main subject matter of the Veda. We say it is Arthavada. Arthavada has many, many interpretations. So, Veda basically is like this. Now, come to the another point. Sometimes Veda talks about what science talks about. There also is Anuvada. That's also restatement, right? It is also a restatement. So, but without giving much of the thought to the pramana, what the pramana is. That's how we have discussed pramana. Pramana means which is to talk something which other means of knowledge, other disciplines will not talk about. And therefore, what Veda says, well, of course, now science says all that, and therefore, definitely, science is not doing Anuvada. Veda is doing Anuvada, we have to say. Because, so to tell Veda as basically a scientific is not a proper thing. If Veda is a science, then the modern science is definitely better than the Veda, because Veda has only words. Science has not words. Science proves through experiments, and therefore they have a supporting evidence. Veda talks about something, Veda talks about eclipse, Veda talks about that the earth is round, etc. And there are few things which you find that what science has proved later. But still science is a better, we can call that, is a better means of knowledge between the two. Well, because Veda just talks only through words. Science also talks, but then they give supporting evidence also. And therefore, science, you should not say Veda is scientific, because otherwise it will be an obsolete thing. It can be admired. Well, it's good that they have recorded something which now these people are proving, etc. It's fine. But then, more than that, we should not say, because Veda is not meant for that, actually. What science is talking, science is a pramanam for that. And Veda is not pramanam for that, like our bricks, etc. This is how it is. We should not give much importance. We should have of course, our Shraddha will increase, etc. That's another thing. But see, our Veda is a very, very scientific. It has talked all these things, what science talks nowadays. Don't say that. Don't say, because they are only words, nothing else. If you ask to Veda that give me supporting evidence for your conclusion, it would not say anything. Science gives you a supporting evidence what they talk. And and other way also. They might have told that earth is round and this is eclipse, etc., etc., with respect to, Jyotisham, etc., or with respect to certain karmas, they might have talked also. That on an eclipse day you have to do this karma. Fine. But what science talk about eclipse is much, much advanced. Much, much advanced. And therefore, if we want, we have a Shraddha in a pramanam, in a Veda as a pramanam, don't say that. Don't say Veda is a scientific, etc. Pujya Swamiji had told, I still remember in one of the class, it's an obsolete science, which are just words. Today's science has gone so far, so advanced, with so much sophistication and everything. And then, therefore, between the two, Veda is going to lose as a pramanam. If you say Veda is a scientific, Veda talks about science, etc. That's not fair. Only anadigatatvam. Keep this thing, hold on to this, anadigatatvam. A subject matter to which I have no access. No science has access. Please understand. Science has no access to the self. Science has no access to the devata. Science has no access to the punya papam. Science has no access to any other karma which gives a result. Science cannot say putra kame. Science cannot prove. If I do putra kameshti, how I am going to get sons? Science cannot prove. It is beyond, because it's purely based on adrishtam. Adrishtam is adrishtam. Even whatever scientific instruments they will bring, they are not going to prove. But then they will not believe Swami. So what? So what? If they don't believe, so what? That's their problem. But basically, if you have a Shraddha in the words of Shastra, then look for this kind of sentences where other means of knowledge, other disciplines have no access. Definitely For this, that's how we have one word, Swatah Pramanyam. Swatah Pramanyam means valid means by itself. The validity of subject matter is proved by itself, cannot be proved by any other means of knowledge. That is called Anadhika Tattva. And therefore, what is proved by the eyes, like color, etc., nothing can prove. Nobody can challenge what eyes prove. What ears prove, nobody can challenge. Nobody can challenge. Ultimately, science has to resort to that. They are resorting. So-called rationals also, they have to ultimately accept and believe what at least Pratyaksha gives to them, what the observation gives to them. If that also they will question, where will they go? What is the basis then for the experiment? Through experiment, they come to a conclusion. Through experiment, what they observe, ultimately observation has to be the basis. Observation means perception, sensory perception, enhanced sensory perception through instruments, etc. But ultimately, they will have to rely that. Even the instruments bring a data, but they will have to rely on their senses. What can you say? Nothing you can do. They may use telescope, etc. Very powerful telescope they have. I have heard in the United States they have, by which they can they know the existence of a distant stars, etc. Of course, through the reflected light, etc. But then, or their own light, whatever. The star has its own light because they are also like sun. Whatever it is. But ultimately, they will have to depend, the scientist who is seeing through the telescope has to depend upon the eyes. The data comes here, but through the eyes. He has to believe. So everyone has to have a Shraddha in particular means of knowledge. If one has no Shraddha to any means of knowledge, I don't think that person can survive long. Really. He will go mad otherwise. So ultimately, Shraddha has to be there. And therefore, that kind of a Shraddha should be there. And so we have a, knowing the Pramanyam of the Veda now, one has a Shraddha in the Shastra or Veda. That is what our definition of Shraddha is, in fact. Guru Shastra Vakyadishu Vishwasa. And so, okay, I think we'll have to stop now. I have some few more points to discuss. Anyway, we'll cover up tomorrow the meaning of the word Upanishad and why it is Kenopanisad, and also we'll cover tomorrow Shanti Mantra also. And then from day after tomorrow we can enter, or from Monday we can enter to the text itself. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om.